Chapter 965, Brief Crisis. On the top floor of a small building, a black-haired, brown-eyed man donning dark-colored clothes was looking down at the arms deal not far away. This man, who looked about 28, couldn't help but say, "He actually got Masonche. Oh, holy Lord of Storms, Alfred, if I had known it would turn out this way, we might as well have done the mission ourselves. Even if all the expenses are deducted, we should still earn at least £20,000. The man beside him was a young man in a black trench coat. He looked about 24 and had a head of resplendent blonde hair and blue eyes that resembled a lake. He had pretty good looks. Being addressed as Alfred, he shook his head and said, "No, that would be too noticeable. Masonche's allegiance has always been unclear. Before figuring out his take on matters, rashly discussing an arms deal with him is extremely dangerous. Dwayne Dance is able to earn £20,000 because he dares to take the risk." The black-haired and brown-eyed man immediately scoffed. To think that Alfred Hall, who has led a few dozen men to assault a battalion with over 1,000 troops, would claim that he doesn't dare take risks. Alfred shot a glance at him and said, "Pagani, this isn't the same thing. That happened because I was confident of wiping out their command center. And once there's a lack of leadership, 1,000 scattered troops might not be as formidable as 1,000 pigs. In addition, the transaction this time is solely a test. It's to establish communications and to set up a channel. If it's done by us, who are we to seek out the next time? And the subsequent ones? If we keep at it, we will ultimately expose ourselves. Once that happens, it will be a diplomatic matter. Furthermore, with the deals deepening and broadening, who knows if this would incur the notice of the demigods of other factions? That would spell danger." "Ha," Pagani said with a smile. "How can demigods be that free to pay notice to such small-scale arm deals? Every faction has a limited number of demigods. There are too many matters awaiting them." "I know, I'm only raising an example," Alfred replied in a staid manner. Pagani didn't harp on the matter and turned his gaze back to Dwayne Dance, who stood outside the warehouse. "This gentleman is said to be very generous. He donated stocks worth more than £10,000 to the Church of Evernight shortly after he arrived in Backland. Is this the early-stage investments that you often speak of? Also, he seems to be working at the same charity foundation with your sister. Tusk, such men are very welcome with the young ladies. He's good-looking and has an outstanding demeanor. He's smart, experienced, and has the artifice. He has seen all kinds of women, and he's at the age to settle down. Alfred, you have to warn Audrey that a playboy will always be one, and that one's moral character is a flaw that can never be corrected. You can't let the most dazzling jewel of Backland be taken by this fellow." Alfred turned his head to glare at Pagani. "There's no need for you to show any concern about such matters. Audrey isn't a young and clueless lady. Her knowledge of the world is far more mature than you imagine. Besides, my father and mother are in Backland. They have the ability to prevent any nasty things from happening." Upon saying that, Alfred looked at the nearby arms warehouse and paused. "Masonche actually sent Haggis. I'll go greet him." "This isn't the best time to meet, right?" Just as Pagani was about to say a word, Alfred had already turned to walk down the stairs. Klein, in the form of Dwayne Dance, didn't bring any servants. He held his gold-inlaid cane and stood with Masonche's representative, Haggis, outside the warehouse. They watched as crates of munitions were carried out and loaded onto carriages. At this moment, he half-turned his body upon sensing something and looked elsewhere. The person that was reflected in his eyes was a young man wearing a trench coat without a hat. His blonde hair was combed into a slick back, and his blue eyes looked like a lake under a bright, clear sky. He was tall with a good build. His every move exuded an indescribable sense of dignity. Even without any troops surrounding him, the authority he wielded was obvious. "Alfred," Haggis noticed the man as well when he cried out in delighted surprise. "Alfred, Miss Justice's second elder brother. This feeling resembles that of the arbiter pathway." Klein raised his right hand and took off his top hat to press it against his chest as a form of greeting. After Alfred Hall greeted Haggis, he turned to look at Dwayne Dance. "Your character is widely spread across Backland. Even I've heard of you, despite being in East Balem. A character at making arms deals." Klein lampooned as he chuckled. "I'm only doing things that I believe need to be done." Alfred nodded. I believe there's no need for any self-introductions. Haggis should have mentioned me to you. Yes, Colonel Hall, Klein replied with a smile. I only learned that Miss Audrey has another brother here in the southern continent after I arrived, that he served in the military and has rendered impressive services. Alfred cast his gaze on Dwayne Dance's face and changed the topic. I thought you would take the opportunity to work at the Lone Charity Bursary Foundation, but you surprised me by choosing to come to the southern continent. Klein maintained his smile from before. For an outsider to truly enter a pre-existing circle is quite impossible just by giving donations, doing charity, and hosting balls and banquets. Alfred tersely answered, very wise. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he asked Haggis, did something happen in Kokawa? It seemed rather serious. Haggis squeezed a smile. I'm not too sure. I was hiding in an underground bunker at the general's residence. I later heard that there was a lightning storm at Revival Square. Lightning storm? Alfred's gaze turned towards Dwayne Dance again. Klein nodded and said, indeed. The hotel I was staying at isn't too far from Revival Square. I did see continuous bolts of lightning striking that area. All of that happened in the day. Alfred's gaze turned towards Haggis again. What happened to the scene in the end? Most of the area was in shambles. There were marks of lightning strikes. Haggis didn't hide the truth at all. Alfred nodded gently and pointed to the side before saying to Haggis and Dwayne Dance, I still have other matters to tend to. We can chat again when the opportunity arises. See you again, Klein politely replied. It made them appear to be at a social gathering instead of being outside a munitions warehouse. He was watching Alfred Hall leave when his body trembled. His head made an abrupt turn to the side. In the primitive forests that covered East and West Balem, a figure was slowly outlined with his back bent. He had a fleshy face with slightly brown skin. His clothes were baggy, and he had a rapier by his waist. In his hand was a silver mask. Looking to his sides, this figure straightened his body. He was none other than Admiral Hell Ludwell, who had previously entered the underworld. However, at this moment, 2 clumps of blood-red flames were burning in his eye sockets. He looked completely different from before. I'm starving. Ludwell opened his mouth, letting out a sigh that seemed to come from his chest. He then cast his gaze in a different direction, muttering, the owner of this marionette is over there. Fate has brought us together again. He has a hunter pathway item on him. It's perfect for replenishing myself. Just as he said that, a bloody mouth appeared on the left cheek of Ludwell's face. It opened and closed as it said, Medici, what we need to deal with first is our survival. After this marionette loses its connection to its owner, it's no different from the dead. The remnant spirit will quickly return to the underworld and not be able to maintain the body. And without the underworld inside him, we will inevitably be weakened until we dissipate. Yes, the most pressing matter now is to find another gatekeeper. Another mouth appeared on Ludwell's right cheek. Red Angel Medici immediately scoffed. Sauron, Einhorn, were the 2 of you women in the past? Your nature as angels has been left in the dumps because of you. That fellow was able to resist 008's arrangements several times, implying that he's definitely not simple. With a chance to lock onto him, how can we give it up? Once this marionette completely dies, things wouldn't be that simple again. Besides, the hunter pathway item on him can effectively extend our existence. Once we finish him, it wouldn't be too late finding a gatekeeper. The bloody crack on Ludwell's left cheek immediately scoffed. Medici, have you sacrificed your brain to the true creator? That fellow has clearly advanced. In our current condition, defeating a Bizarro sorcerer isn't difficult, but killing him is nearly impossible. Medici wasn't frustrated, and instead, he laughed deeply. This isn't something unresolvable. As long as you allow me to chant my lord's honorific name, helpers will immediately arrive. A gatekeeper might even be automatically brought here. The mouth on Ludwell's right cheek immediately opened and closed. Sauron, let's work together to stop him and search for a gatekeeper. All right, the mouth on Ludwell's left cheek didn't hesitate to reply. Upon seeing this, Red Angel Medici laughed. The 2 of you have fallen for it. My goal has been met. I can confirm that the 2 of you were previously women. The 2 mouths on Ludwell's cheeks roared, shut up. Humph, we've been merged together for 2,000 years. Would we not know what tricks you're up to? There's no need to struggle again. As they spoke, the colors around Admiral Hel Ludwell instantly saturated and stacked upon one another. He had entered the spirit world and began traversing it. Outside the munitions warehouse, Klein finally retracted his gaze as his premonition for danger vanished. For that one moment, he had a baffling feeling, but he was unable to project the corresponding scene in his mind. What happened? Klein muttered to himself. Without waiting any further, he threw the suitcase in his hand to the officer who was in charge of handing and taking over. Then, he said to Haggis, "The rest is yours. You can give me the rest of the payment." He was referring to the heavy case, filled with gold bars and coins. Haggis had planned on having drinks with Dwayne Dance after the completion of the deal to celebrate its success, and to discuss any future deals. He never expected Dwayne Dance to be in such a hurry to leave. "All right, it's on the carriage," he pointed and said. Alfred, who had already walked quite a distance, turned his head to look over, perplexed. He wasn't sure why Dwayne Dance wasn't following the predesignated procedure.